What if the boundaries of the body weren't boundaries at all? What if your consciousness could slip free, traveling across dimensions, into realms beyond time, beyond space, and even beyond death itself? For centuries, mystics and seekers have spoken of journeys outside the flesh, astral travel, out of body experiences, and the mysteries that unfold when we dare to leave our physical form behind. Tonight, we step into that otherworldly current with Marilynn Hughes, a woman who has lived these experiences thousands of times. Founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation, she has spent decades chronicling her journeys, authoring more than 140 books, dozens of magazines, and teaching seekers around the world about the spiritual realms she has explored firsthand. From her first profound out of body experience at age 9 to a lifetime of mystical revelations, Marilyn has mapped a territory that most of us only glimpse in dreams. And that's our topic tonight on the very best in paranormal programming. I'm Dave Schrader, and welcome to my Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney. He won't know. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Good evening, my darklings. Can you feel it? Can you sense it? We are only about 11 days away from the premiere of Paranormal Mysteries. It is coming September 26th to Beacon TV. Cindy Kaza, Shane Pittman, me, Dave Schrader, we are back investigating strange claims of the supernatural. And this time you don't know where we're going because we're not following anybody's files. We're opening our own. Paranormal Mysteries airs September 26th all the way through October, with the final episode of the season airing on Halloween night. And I hope you will check it out and be a part of that. If you are looking for your new home for all things paranormal, true crime, and horror, then go look up Beacon TV on your smart devices or go to streambeacontv.com and join us because it's going to be an amazing time. And I hope to see you watching our program along with us. Joining us now, Marilynn Hughes. She is the author of, as I said, over 140 books. And tonight we're going to talk about out-of-body travel, astral projection. Marilynn, at the age of 9, you had your first out-of-body experience?
I did. And, that particular experience was a very beautiful experience, but it presented me with more of a foreshadowing of what would happen later in life, which started again when I was around 22. And that is what began the chronicling, which started the book writing that kind of began the what's become the Out of Body Travel Foundation and all these books.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. You've got on some jingly belts on your wrists or bracelets, bangly. I'm going to need you to duct tape them or pull them off because every time you move your hand, it sounds like Tinkerbell's dancing around our microphones.
Okay, it's actually my cat.
Okay, then duct tape it down.
Let me get that girl in the other room. Hold on.
No problem. I've been fascinated, as many of you have, by the concept of astral projection. Is it real? Do we really leave our physical form at night when we close our eyes and drift off into slumber? So many of the dreams that we have in my life have included flight. And I've been told anytime you are flying in a dream, you are, in fact, astral projecting. Let's ask the one person who might know the best about this. Marilynn, when I'm flying in my dreams, am I truly projecting out of my body, or am I just having a dream about flight?
Sometimes you're having what would be a partial memory of an out-of-body experience. It wouldn't be a full memory. A full conscious recall of the experience would be very, very conscious. You know, you'd go through the vibrational state, you'd have the separating from the body and this full experience. You know, the interesting thing about out of body experiences is that when you have a fully conscious out of body experience, it's so powerful and so unique that you have no question, oh, that was an out of body experience. It's that conscious. And ironically, people are often surprised by how much more alive we feel in these experiences than we do in our physical bodies, because we're going into it, this higher spiritual vibration environment. And so people are like, but I felt so much more alive, you know, and this is one of the things that surprises people, because the worlds beyond death, so to speak, are very much alive. In fact, more so than we experience here.
Let me ask you something real quickly to just kind of deal with the creep factor of one segment of my world.
Sure.
Many people come to me with talk of the sleep paralysis or old hag syndrome. And in many instances, and this was my own example as well, I've only had it happen to me once. And when I woke up, it was at a start. I couldn't move. I was breathing very shallow. It was hard to grab a full breath. And I sensed something coming up the stairs towards me. And I could sense it. I just know something was in my house moving. And it set in this panic and fear, and every horror movie idea is running through my brain at the time. But I've often thought after the fact, could it be that I was astral projecting and that my physical form became aware before my spiritual form re-entered the body, and therefore what I was actually sensing was myself coming up the stairs or coming closer to my physical form? Or is that just hope?
What's more likely is a lot of times when people will experience the paralysis phenomenon is ironically when they are under some type of spiritual attack. So a spiritual warfare or a dark demonic or an evil type ghost experience. They will be unable to move. They will be unable to speak. They will be shouting in their minds and their thoughts, but they will not be able to project their voice. And that is part of awesome, sometimes like a demonic type attack. And so some people will experience it that way. In terms of the proverbial just sleep paralysis, that's more of, you know, a physical phenomenon. But people do kind of put them together because of the fact that a lot of times people will have these experiences where they experience terror. You know, the terror comes with it, or they will actually have. A lot of people write to me about how they have had the experience of seeing the demonic force or the dark force or just some evil force. Sometimes it's even just a ghost of some kind that is definitely not a friendly ghost, and they feel that terror and they're unable to speak, move, and it's complete paralysis. And that is very common in the realms of spiritual warfare. So oftentimes people look at it as always being the same thing, but they are two different phenomena. So there's a physical phenomenon that's sleep paralysis that's actually, better answered by a neurologist. And then there's the ones that are related to spiritual warfare that you're going to see usually when a soul is under some type of spiritual attack.
All right, let's start at the beginning for me with you.
Sure.
Your first moment of astral projection out of body experience, is that something you're comfortable discussing with us?
Sure, absolutely. When I was 9 years old, so there was like two first experiences, you know, the one when I was 9 and then the one that occurred when I was 22. So when I was 9, I had this experience where I'm lying in bed and all of a sudden the heavens start pulsating, you know, dark, bluish, grayish, white clouds are just moving. And then they part and this marble staircase from earth to heaven opens. And along the sides are these golden angels on all the way from the bottom to the top. And at the top of the stairs are two golden thrones, and there are two beings who I perceive to be God and his son Jesus at the top. And then I went through a very lengthy experience where I was instructed about what my actual vocation, my calling in life was going to be later, and how this type of experience was somehow associated with it. But, I was 9 years old, so it didn't quite make as much sense to me at that time. I was just mind blown. I was blown away. The reality of, the existence of God and this whole other world had just been literally thrust upon me as a 9-year-old child. And it was just so overwhelming and powerful and real. And I went through this instruction about how these were the types of things that I would have to do. I would have to go through this. There would be difficulties. Part of my purpose was going to be to put out the fires of certain types of spiritual ignorance and try to, bring people back to their spirit, but I didn't understand exactly how that would happen. And when I was 22, of course, then it stopped. And I went through it. I was told there would be difficulties. There were difficulties. And at the age of 22, I had an unexpected, completely spontaneous out-of-body experience that was much more of your run-of-the-mill regular type, where I went into a vibrational state. I heard all the jet engine sounds that you hear around you. I heard the voices, which are the thoughts of the astral plane. So, first of all, the jet engine noises, that is the difference in vibration between the physical world and the spiritual world. So when your body, spirit detach and you're switching over from physical to spiritual consciousness, you all of a sudden start hearing this massive, loud, like a jet engine noise, even though it's much different. And the vibration is also related to this. You're switching from the physical body's vibration to the soul's vibration, the spirit. And the spirit is of a much higher vibration than the physical body. And so it feels like you're just vibrating at this unbelievable speed, and you hear the jet engine noises. And all of a sudden you hear all these voices. And what you learn as you continue the path is that these are the thoughts of humanity that are moving around the astral plane. So I heard all that. And then, of course, this first time I was very afraid, because I'm thinking, oh, I must be dying, because that's what it seemed like, right? So this particular time I rolled over and out. I went up to the top of the ceiling, looked down on my body, realized, like many people say, wow, that thing looks like a lump of gray flesh and it doesn't look very meaningful to me, And then I popped back into my body. And then I prayed and asked for help, so that the next time it might happen, it might not be so, terrifying. And then the next time it happened, I had 3 golden angels on either side who pulled me out. And then what ended up happening, so I wasn't scary at all. It was totally peaceful. And what ended up happening was it started happening regularly, and I started journaling it down. As I journaled, they started teaching me more and more and more and more. And so what started out as me learning about basic things like how to move in your spiritual body, how to see, hear, touch, and feel, how to move through a wall, how to get through the astral plane, ended up in much more than that, where you learned how to move through the corridors from the 4th realm, which is the astral plane, into, higher realms, which is the 5th realms and above, into similar realms, which are purgatorial realms, which are the same level type realms, even into lower realms, which are the darker realms, the hellish realms. And so the heavens, hells, and purgatories. And I was taken through the initiations into the mysteries and the rites of passage. And then it just continued and continued and continued. It was a continual evolution of teaching, where I was continually being taught. And as that was happening, I was being met by different teachers, different guardians, who would direct my path. They would direct me as to what they wanted me to study. I started being visited by the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and ascetics from all world religions and traditions from all throughout the world in all time. And they started talking to me about the ancient sacred texts. And they told me to, quote unquote, retrieve the ancient sacred texts. They wanted me to study the ancient sacred texts because part of my unique purpose was to bring together the work of all of these prophets from all around the world, prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and show how these various bursts of light, is the way I would put it, that occurred with these great beings throughout time, whether they were, Stone Age medicine men, women, shamans, or different people who had received revelations throughout time. We found that each one of them had received a certain particular knowledge of God. And they were like, when you put it all together, they formed this beautiful diamond, and every single facet showed you something about God that you didn't previously know. But the more of these facets that you explored and understood, and they led me to study, and then they would take me to these beautiful celestial realms and have the angels teach me, the more I would understand God. And the way I came to actually describe and explain it was, if you want to get to know somebody, you get to know their friends, right? And that's what they got, that's what God and my guardian angels, my spiritual teachers were having me do. They were having me get to know God's friends. And then I was also learning at the very same time all of these other things on the other side of the coin, so to speak, where I had to go into the knowledge of darkness and evil, the understanding of what is the energetic understanding of good and evil, and how is it managed, and how does it work inside the soul and in the cosmos. And then I was taught and directed to work within the realms of spirit to assist other souls to work through blocks and things so that they could move beyond things that were holding them in patterns of darkness or evil, and even simple things like karmic ignorance, because a big part of the original journey was traveling into your own past lifetimes and seeing your own habitual behaviors that were holding you in this karmic circling pattern, where you were not able to do anything different. You just kept kind of coming back and doing the same thing over and over again. And you would be allowed to go through this time tunnel, which is one of the corridors.
All right, hold tight 1 second. You're giving us a sip out of a fire hydrant here. So there's a couple things I need to go back at because I'm just curious.
No worries.
One thing that really kind of spoke very strangely to me, when I was home on the 4th of July, my phone rang about 1:30 in the afternoon. My cousin called. I had no expectation. When I saw his name, I thought, oh no, did my aunt pass away? And he started to inform me about my father passing away. And
Okay.
I started to hear this.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Like, thank you. I can't explain it, but it sounded like jet engines roaring in my ears.
Exactly.
And
I'm getting slammed with energy.
Let me finish real quick. So I'm hearing this tearing noise, it was so bad. I could still hear him, but like my brain wasn't processing the words. I knew what he was saying. I understood what he was saying, but everything just seemed disconnected. And at one point, I actually felt like, I wasn't hovering above myself or anything, but I felt disconnected from my physical form. Not that I was outside looking anywhere or seeing anything any different. I just felt disconnected, like physical and spiritual had been broken. And all I could hear was this roaring noise for probably a good 12 to 15 minutes, was there some kind of shock to my system that I was close to having an astral or out of body exposure at that moment?
Well, there are different kinds of things that can happen, different kinds of mystical experiences, and they don't have to be defined as out of body travel or astral projection. You
Right, but you
definitely,
had brought up that roaring noise, which I'd never heard
right.
before.
And you definitely were like experiencing something mystical, and you were definitely experiencing something otherworldly, and you were definitely experiencing something with that vibrational raising, that vibrational sound, and in some kind of break between the physical and the non-physical world. And I do think it's possible that, the way you described it, it's possible that it was a shock to your system, but I also think it's possible that you and your father were connecting somehow, between wherever he was and where you were. It was like a little bit of merging going on where you weren't necessarily having, maybe you were bordering on one that could have happened, but you were being pulled towards him. He was pulling towards you, and you were just sharing that moment. And you were kind of in shock there, but you were close to him spiritually in that moment. I definitely feel that very strongly. And it was almost like he was there. He was pulling you in to where he was somewhat.
Do you believe then that our spiritual essence, our energetic form, whatever it is truly inside the vessel, or is it all encompassing the vessel? Because like I said, in that moment, the disconnect was subtle, but it felt like there was, like, my consciousness superseded my physical form, as though awareness was much bigger than physicality. And I can't explain it any better than that. And it started to make me wonder at that point, was I getting ready to leap bodies, or was I ready to faint? Was there something like that medically? I was eliminating, those kind of thoughts. But I afterwards sat there and thought, was my consciousness shaken out of the doldrums of day life and suddenly fully present, which I don't know that we're ever fully present unless we're, we need to be more often. But I didn't know if that was kind of, it called my consciousness back to my body. And that's what I was feeling or sensing.
All of what you just said, I think are I think I can see all of that happening in that moment. I do feel like it's like you were called right to be fully in place in your body, and you became fully present in that moment in such a way that you were able to transcend all those barriers, and you were able to be fully present in some way with your father, with wherever he was pulling in to be present with you. And I really feel like he was pulling into you and you were pulling into him, even though it wasn't a conscious act,
Right.
But
Like
it
you said,
happened.
you had a spontaneous out of body experience. So that's why I was wondering when you were tying those things together with the sounds and
Yes.
spontaneity of it all. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I also want to discuss real quickly. People discuss dream visitations, these moments when in a dream realm, we come into contact with someone we love. The dream becomes staggeringly real, lucid, clear, probably more clear, more connected than a regular memory like you and I are sharing right now. It becomes so much more visceral. Is that just a part of the grieving process, or have we projected into their realm, or have they projected back into ours, into our consciousness? We'll talk about that when we return. Marilynn Hughes, our guest, and you can find information about Marilynn on today's program guide and get her books, including the complete manual of out-of-body travel and astral projection. We'll cover that and so much more when we return right here to your home for all things paranormal. This is the Paranormal 60.
How are you, Darklings? This is Mark Lanou, innovator, musician, world traveler, and no stranger to the paranormal. Come take a journey with me through this place we call life by picking up my new book, Reality Was Once the Tapestry of the Dreamer. It is available at Barnes & Noble online and will soon be available through other vendors. Get your copy by following the link in this ad or by visiting my official website at markallenlanou.com.
Hey folks, we are just a few weeks away from Halloween Haunts and Hijinks event at the very haunted and historic Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, Minnesota. We are keeping this to a limited, smaller scale group of only 40 people. There are only 8 tickets that remain. If you would like to participate in this event and go investigating the Palmer House Hotel with me and ghost brother Dalen Spratt and psychic medium Diet Renee, get your tickets now. Thursday night, we will have a meet and greet and a fun Halloween costume party where there will be awards given that evening. And then Friday and Saturday, we will have gallery sessions. We will have spirit box sessions. We will have one-on-one discussions with our guests and full night investigations of the Palmer House with reviews of the evidence that we were able to capture and collect. So we would love for you to be a part of that. If you're watching the live video, just scan the QRC code. For those of you listening, check out darknessevents.com. Darknessevents.com. October 9th through the 12th, 2025, the Halloween Haunts and Hijinks event. It is the final Palmer House event of the year for me, and I would love to have you out there. Our guest this evening, Marilynn Hughes, as we are discussing out-of-body experiences, astral projection, astral travel. Is a dream visitation, Marilynn, a form of astral travel for us or the spirit realm, or are we meeting in a mid-ground?
Well, I guess what you just said there, a mid-ground, is actually a good definition. However, a lot of times in a lucid dream like that, especially after the death of a loved one and when someone is meeting someone who's deceased, you can have what are called spiritual dreams, which are very vivid, as you described, and they are not the fully conscious out-of-body experience, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't possibly be an experience of that caliber, but for whatever reason, the fully conscious nature of it has been toned back for you. Sometimes it's just because that fully conscious nature might be too much. You know, you've probably heard from a lot of people who have out-of-body experiences that once they go out there, they're like, oh my gosh, it was so powerful. I was so startled. I just jumped right back to my body, right? Mm-hmm. And so things are muted accordingly to what we can individually handle at any given time. And people have spiritual dreams that are intended to either instruct us or teach us. And many people have these experiences with deceased relatives and friends that are intended for our consolation, and oftentimes too for things to be shared that may have, needed to be said that were not said and needed to be, resolved. And so those are very important experiences. They are definitely mystical experiences. And the way you described it was perfect, that something changes. You're having a normal dream experience and then something changes, it shifts, and all of a sudden, you're in a different element. It's something different. And that's when you're in a spiritual dream where it has some type of important significance and you need to pay attention. And those are very important. And yes, we are having real conversations with our deceased loved ones. It's not just our brain trying to figure out our grief. We are actually communicating with them. They are coming back to let us know they're okay, or to give us whatever consolation it might be that we need, or they might need both.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about visiting all these different, from the hell realms to the heaven realms, mm-hmm. If I take your courses, if I read your books, could I theoretically learn how to astral project to the heaven realm, to visit friends and family that have crossed over and come back safely?
Absolutely. And in fact, a lot of people have reported, and in fact, when I was writing it, I was told by my spiritual teachers that they were, endowing what I was writing with a certain type of energy that would make it possible for people to just have spontaneous out-of-body experiences. And a lot of my readers report that they do start having spontaneous experiences. And I do have a whole series of books on the out-of-body travel how-tos, and it starts with some of the basic things and it goes into a very, very deep, so if you follow through the series, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, as do the out-of-body travel books as well. So you absolutely can do that. And one of the reasons why this happens is, and this is what I was told by the spiritual teachers that led me through this whole thing, was that I was mapping out this whole other world. And by showing people what's out there and letting them see the map, I'm making possible to their psyche and to their spirit and soul and conscious what can be experienced. And so it becomes more achievable and it becomes more commonplace. So it's not as scary. The more that they learn and the more they understand the map, they're like, oh, okay, I understand. This is the way we do things. And one of the films that we put out, we've done some documentary films. One of them's called The Grand Phases of the Soul, which goes through the phases of the soul as mapped out in our first book, The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And it goes through these 8 major stages of the soul. And so when you learn all of these things, it's like you've got the map now, and you are it happens naturally because you are it's no longer this blank slate there. It's not black anymore. It is an open book, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now let's get this out of the way, as we're about the halfway point of the show. I want to deal with one more scary aspect of this. And then, because I want to confront that up instead of, a lot of my contemporaries would like to ask that at the end and leave people spooked and hanging. I love to educate. So obviously there's a time for being afraid and a time to learn. Let's deal with the spooky aspect. A lot of people have a fear that by learning astral projection, there is a danger involved. Can I be separated from my physical form forever? Can something return with me that I'm unaware of? Is that how possession begins? What can you tell us about the reality of the dangers of astral projection?
Well, those are good questions. And there is just the basic thing to be aware of is that spiritual warfare is a part of the experience. And as you go through this, you will start learning, because you're learning about good and evil, and you're learning about these, realms that are upper and lower and in between. You will learn about those kinds of things, and you will run into those kinds of things. You're going to learn about ghosts and lost souls, and you're going to learn how to deal with them and how to help them cross over. And you're going to learn about demons and demonic spirits, and you're going to learn about souls that are in hell, and how do you minister to them too. So if you're called to that, let me make that disclaimer, because it's not everybody is asked to do that. So don't, if you're called to do that, you will, but you'll learn about those things. So these are things that are part of our cosmology. It's part of the cosmos. So you're going to come across it. The dangers of you not being able to come back to your body are pretty much not a thing. And I'll explain that. So one of the things that I have learned over the last 40 some years is that we don't, because people actually do this in their sleep at night and don't know about it. And the angels are working on souls subconsciously. And many people are unaware of it, and people do not have memories of the experiences that they have because they're completely subconscious. And so what's happening when you start learning out-of-body travel or astral projection is you're becoming conscious of something that's already happening. And when you realize that, a lot of these questions change a little bit. So, okay, you're becoming aware of something that's already happening. So what's happening, you're doing this anyway. It's just now you know you're doing it sometimes and you become aware of it. So that takes us to the dark spirits, the spiritual warfare. So those spiritual warfares are going on now. Those things are happening and you're not aware of them. So you might become more aware of them, and you might be you might experience some things, and some of them might be a little bit frightening at first. But what happens is you can first of all learn about it in a lot of my books and a lot of other people's books too. And when you go to my site, I have a lot of resources you can look at, not just my own.
And give the website again real quickly.
outofbodytravel.org. And if you go there, you can download all my stuff for free, all my books, all our films, everything you can do. We have classes and seminars, everything. And so you can do that. But what you have to realize is that as you go through these experiences, you will be taught. You will be taught. And so you're going to learn about these the good and evil, the darkness within your own soul, or the things that are hanging around you. And that might freak you out a little bit, but part of the reason to become aware of it is also to learn, well, how do I change that situation? How do I remove those things from around me? And it's also where you learn, well, why do ghosts and lost souls hang around? What's going on? And what are the different scenarios? And how can I actually help them to cross into the light? What is it that needs to happen? And then you learn how to attain the energetic influence that you need in order to be able to help them. And so things that appear frightening at first, I remember the first time I came across my first lost soul, I was terrified and I said, no, I don't want to do this. And then my spiritual teacher took me to the Akashic records and showed me exactly where I signed up for it. And I said, well, I guess I have to, huh? And, so everybody, gets a little bit freaked out when they first get exposed to some of these darker things. But there's a reason to understand them. And it has to do with understanding ourselves and understanding those around us. And another thing that I always tell people is creation continues to create. And we are always asked to give back to creation that which creation gives to us. And part of the reason we have to learn about these things is so that we can serve whatever purpose we are uniquely called to serve. So like in your case, Dave, you're doing these things with these haunted houses in the physical realm. And this is your calling to do this. And so you have to be prepared and you do all the things that you do in order to fulfill this purpose. And in the mystical sphere, in the out-of-body travel space, you have to follow, how am I to give back to creation? And you're directed. In my case, it was like you had to remember when we are taught by beings in realms higher than our own. And so we are asked to go into realms lower than our own and help those souls. And so that means we're going into some realms where things are a little darker than they are even here. So this is sometimes where lost souls and ghosts are, and it's sometimes even in the, the purgatories and the hells. And so it's all part of how creation gives back to creation and how we give back for what is given to us as we are educated and taught, and we give, all these gifts are given to us as we are, because, the gifts of this experience are so awesome in terms of, the things that we get to learn and experience and see, the cities of light, the celestial light kingdoms, the galactic heavens, the white-winged horses, all the things that there's so much. there's so much.
So there is no inherent danger of being separated for eternity from our physical form.
No,
Okay.
not that
There,
I'm aware of. No,
all right.
the dangers that people, that's not a danger. The dangers that people need now. The one thing that I always caution is anybody who's been involved in an exorcism, or anybody who's been involved, like in your situation, you may know people who have lived in extremely haunted homes and who have been under the attack of really dark demonic forces. They need to be more careful because they may have, propensities. They may have vulnerabilities. People in those kind of positions, they might not want to actually try to practice this sort of thing because they're going to have open doorways that other people don't have, and they need to protect themselves a little bit more.
And I know tonight will fly by. This is just an introduction, folks. I'll have Marilynn back on in the future, and perhaps we'll even allow you to join us live on show and in studio so that you can pose your questions to her as well. We'll have a break again in a few minutes, and when we come back from that, I do want to talk about what are some of the basic things that we can start doing now to try to have an experience so that it is a good experience when we start to dabble into those realms. So we'll cover that. Like I said, I want to go out on good notes with these things and not leave people in a state of fear, because everybody's so worried. Everybody's worried about everything. Oh, well, those ghosts aren't ghosts. They're demons trying to fool me. And this is trying to fool me. And that's trying to fool me. And mediums are trying to fool me. And I've often said, here's the funny thing. You spend so much time being fearful of things that are trying to fool you. Humanity is a much darker, evil place to me than any astral projection level we should ever hit. Because at least you're feeling the vibration, where you're going, or you're aware of it when you're there. I just find that it's strange that we walk in this place of fear, and yet so many of the messages that we get from mediums are messages of love. So many of the messages we get from the spirit realm that visit us are messages of love. That to me should be the biggest sign that you're not dealing with something demonic. That, unless demons are just cuddly too, and they just need the affection. I don't think that that's what's going on in our world. So let's step away from being fearful of all of these experiences and start to learn them, because obviously this has been going on since humanity burped into existence on this planet. Right. And somewhere along the line, we've lost this knowledge and it needs to be reintroduced. I think people keep wondering what's that next evolution for us. I don't think it's a new evolution. I think it's finding the things that we lost about ourselves in the past. And these kind of skills and abilities and adaptabilities are what's going to help us feel like we're finally evolving and moving forward, because that should be part of the whole living experience, isn't it, Marilynn? Not just this physical bag of bones, walking the earth, working, sweating, making babies, going to bed and starting all over again. This is just one small portion of it. We need to learn how to let consciousness breathe and live with us as well.
Oh, yes, we do. And, one of the things I like to tell people and remind people when they get freaked out about like ghosts and lost souls is it's important to remember ghosts and lost souls are people, and they're people who are lost and they need help. And we forget that, and that any one of us could be in a predicament like they are at any given time. A lot of ghosts and lost souls, it happens because of a sudden death, an unexpected or horrific type of event, a lot of, what I mean?
Yeah.
And we forget that they're people who died, who are confused. And a lot of times they haven't realized that they died, and that happens. Sometimes they do.
Well, is that because maybe some of them we're coming into contact with don't know their astral projection and they think they're dead or think they're a ghost, but they're just us unaware of what they're doing yet?
I haven't run into, but in my experience, I'm always taken in particular to the ones that I'm supposed to go assist. So that I'm sure could happen. But what I have been taken to are the ones who are actually deceased and have been have crossed over and are stuck for a variety of reasons. One of the things that I always found striking was that sometimes the scariest ghosts, once I was given that information, because what happens is that information is given to you from the Holy Spirit. It comes in and you understand what's going on with them. And as that's brought into you and you are given the information of how do you break this delusion and help this soul, and then all of a sudden when you're having that break and the transformation that occurs in the moments before you send them up to the angels and through the light, there is such a massive change in them. So when you first run into them, you're like, oh my gosh, this one is so scary. And then you realize they were just a scared human being who was lost and didn't know what was going on. And they just needed this little bit of help. And look at, they're normal, they're fine. And they just need a little bit of assistance, Now, this doesn't mean that's always the case, because there are situations involving hauntings, and I'm sure you know about those, that do involve demons and things like that too. But when you're talking about just ghosts and lost souls, those are people who have crossed over, who are just people. We
Just
forget
people.
that. Yeah.
Do we cross through these planes when you're doing this? I know you're there with an agenda and helping spirits, but do you bump into Bigfoot? Do you bump into aliens? Do you bump into the Fae folk? Are those all different levels of the astral planes in which you're traveling?
I've bumped into a lot of these things. Now, I haven't bumped into Bigfoot. I would love to. I'd love to know more about that. I have visited with so many different races of extraterrestrials. And it's very interesting because amongst the extraterrestrials, you have such a wide spectrum of what they are as well, because some of them are extremely, extremely advanced beings. And then you have some that are just like us, like living in a mortal realm where there's good and evil. And then you have others that are evil beings. And then you have ones that are just kind of like, trying to look at us kind of like lab rats, and they're doing some experiments and they're just like, yeah, whatever, and so there's just as much variety among them. But one of the things I always found interesting.
But you have crossed those planes and seen other beings.
Oh, yes. And communicated with them and had amazing experiences and been taken in their craft to their worlds through the out-of-body experiences as well. And in terms of the Fae folk, I've had experiences with fairies and with elemental beings, with the elemental spirits, with so many things like that. There's so much. I have not met Sasquatch. I hope to someday. I would love to know the story behind Sasquatch. But there's so much in terms of, like, even with the angelical hierarchy, the teachers, all the teachers, we think, like, even when I talk about the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages, we think about the ones that we know here on earth, but there are all these teachers that we don't know them here. They're unknown to us, but, people like Kutahe, who was one of my teachers, just unknown beings that are, going around doing their thing, teaching about whatever it is they teach, and as we go through the out-of-body experience, we go through these little phases. So I might spend 6 months with one teacher, and then it's like, okay, we've done our thing, and I'm going to pass you on to the next teacher, and this one's going to teach you about something else. And, and this is what it does. And so, over the last 40 years, since I was 22, that's what's been happening. And so, I've literally met dozens and dozens and dozens of teachers and
very cool
types of angels in different realms, and the different types of creative beings, the types of beings that energize different types of creation on earth, but also the muses. Yes, I have seen the muses, and these beautiful knights who help with the creation of music as well. I've heard the music of the spheres many times, and it's beautiful. It's inexpressible. And there's all of these, the masters, the great masters. They live up in the galactic heavens in this. Ironically, they live in this floating building in the galactic heavens, and they are very hard to get in there because you do have to get through some things to be allowed in. You know what I mean?
Feel free to name drop me, Marilynn. Just tell them you're friends with international TV station Dave Schrader. We have to take a break because I can hear them. Can you? The voices from the other side are trying to communicate with us. What do they have to say? A vampire in Rhode Island?
A UFO crash in Connecticut?
A flying moose in Maine?
A haunted bridge that calls your name?
New England is weird.
Really weird.
Wicked Strange by Jeff Belanger and Frank Grace is your ticket to the bizarre. Ghosts, monsters, urban legends, and roadside oddities you won't believe until you see them.
So pre-order now on Amazon. It drops September 2nd.
Assuming the Black Dog of West Peak doesn't get you first.
Let's get strange.
Wicked Strange. Pre-order your copy now on Amazon. Hey folks, pretty exciting. Up North Paracon is taking place this year. It is, I think, November 8th-ish or so? November 8th. We have more information about this. Shane and I will be there. Who knows? It'll be right after the end of the brand new series, Paranormal Mysteries, which begins airing on September 26th on Beacon TV. So make sure that you come on out, join us at the Up North Paracon. You'll get to hear real-life stories, investigations, and more with Shane and I. It's going to be exciting. And for those of you darklings that are interested, stay tuned because at the end of tonight's show, I have a huge announcement to make. But you have to listen at the end of tonight's show. Be here for that because it's something pretty cool coming up in October that you can come be a part of, and we would like you to be there. So I will let you know about that in just a little bit. Marilynn Hughes, our guest, she's the author of over 140 books. Tonight, we're talking about out-of-body travel and astral projection. We've just been scratching the surface of many different details and aspects of this. But as I said, as we're rolling out the end of tonight's show, what are some things, Marilynn, that, okay, I've set my mind, I've moved past my initial fears, I would like to start doing this. What are some really good beginning steps that listeners right now can begin to take besides stopping the show and going to your website and reading all your free stuff or watching the videos? What can they do tonight to start readying themselves for this?
The biggest things are oftentimes the most neglected, which is prayer, meditation, and then spiritual reading. And when I speak about meditation, I always want to make sure I point out when I'm talking about meditation, I try to point out that it's always good to try to do up to 3-hour blocks. And the reason for that is because when you're trying to go into the level of consciousness required to reach the vibrational state, you're going to need to have that level of time to do that and use that. It takes discipline over time to get yourself there. And so you're thinking in terms of, if I'm going to get to the vibrational state, I have to discipline my mind and my spirit. And it takes these longer blocks because a lot of times to get to that vibrational state, you have to do these longer blocks. It's not going to usually happen in a 15-minute meditation session. But what you're trying to do is constantly be feeding your soul with spiritual reading every day, but also you want to have the talking to God, having the dialogue between you and spirit. And you also want to be listening, and that's your meditation, where you're allowing not only to hear, but you're allowing vibration to come in. And that's even when you don't know or feel it yet, because when you're meditating, that is partly what you're doing, is you're starting to allow vibration to start moving. And sometimes what I'll recommend are even just simple mindfulness meditations like the ones that Thich Nhat Hanh used to do. It doesn't have to be complicated, just stuff where you just try to clear the mind, just to clear the mind, stay in mindfulness, and allow yourself to fall deeper into consciousness. And I have a book called Come to Wisdom's Door, which goes into, working through your fears and blocks and, those kinds of things that will, and getting yourself in the right mindset for the experience. And, part of the right mindset is, thinking, I want to know the truth about the universe, whether that truth contradicts my previous understanding of it or not. So you want to get into this space where you can handle the truth, so to speak, where God can reveal to you how things really work, the mechanics of the universe, the mechanics of existence, and that you can take it in, and that you can be taught, so
Marilyn, what about people that haven't been raised in the world of Christianity, where there is God and Jesus and these different levels? Are they able to do this? Are they able to go to these places? And will they have an experience if they believe in Buddha, if they believe in Muhammad, if they believe in Donny Osmond? Will they meet that person instead of God? Will they meet that person instead of
Donny Osmond? But
no, he's not dead yet. Thank God for Donny.
I was kidding there. But absolutely. Ironically, the whole point of, the Mysteries of the Redemption, which was that first book I mentioned, was showing that this path is open to believers of all kinds and people who have not studied a religion at all. It's showing that the spiritual path is literally, to a certain extent, it's humankind's, religion is an expression of humankind trying to understand the universal field of being and God himself throughout history, right? And this is what we're doing, is we're dipping into the universal field of being and bringing that universal field of being out. Another way to put it is that as you start experiencing this, you're bringing a little bit of heaven to earth every time you go into this experience and bring a little bit back with you. But it's also an experience of the universal field of being as much as it is anything else. One of the most beautiful things you'll experience in the out-of-body travel experience is that very thing. Because you do experience, you've all heard, I'm sure, about some of the new theories about the fields, the quantum hologram theories. In the out-of-body travel experience, there are places you go where you actually see the fields of life, and you are allowed to enter into it. And it's actually part of the initiations into the mysteries. And as you continue going further and further in out-of-body travel, you are taken deeper and deeper into that field of being, because that field of being is actually one of the things I call liquid consciousness, in absolute dissolution of consciousness and body and mind. It's where you enter into that. It's almost like this field of all souls, and you become like this little flicker of light in this field of all life. And it is so hard to explain because it's such a blissful, peaceful thing when you experience it and you realize you're just moving with the flow of this life. There are many different ways that you experience it. There's the tachyon fields, which is an amazing, amazing place to go. There's the tachyon field. There's the experiencing being that blip of light, but there's also where you like literally crunch just down into energy and you are nothing else. And you enter into and you see it as a river moving through space and time. And it's literally the field of life, as of all life. And when you experience this, you understand, first of all, that all things truly are one, but you understand what that really means. a lot of times people talk about how God is love, but they don't understand what does that mean? You learn what that means. And because love is an emanation, it is a magical emanation of a quality, of a vibration. And when you understand what that is, it changes everything. And it's the same with this field of being. And you realize this is what oneness, and what does it mean that we are all one? You know, it's a nice thing to say, just like it's a nice thing to say God is love. But what does it mean?
Right.
And when you experience it, and you realize it's so far beyond the capacity of the human mind to truly comprehend, or beyond the ability of our language to put into words, and you are literally just in ecstasy or samadhi, when you experience it, peer upon it, flow within it, you're forever changed.
Very cool. As I said, we have only just begun this discussion, and we'll have you back in a few months, Marilynn, and invite
Okay.
some of the listeners and viewers to join us on this program and continue to take this. But begin your journey now. You can go, you can visit Marilynn, you can visit her website. We have a link for it on today's program guide. Go learn about it. Start your beginning steps. Why block yourself to the earth in this physical form and only really experience 1/3 of what living truly is? Take yourself outside and explore that realm. And you can go in hand with Marilynn through her books, writings, readings, and documentaries that you'll find on her website. Marilynn, thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I told you, for those of you that hung in, I have some pretty big news. This is really exciting, and I'm very thrilled to be a part of this. I told you that I was filming a documentary series, and we have got it together. We put it out to the Twin Cities Film Festival, and they would like to have us be a part of the film festival. So we were accepted. I'm very excited to be a part of this. So The Outer Edge. Yeah, The Outer Edge is a documentary film that will be airing on October 18th at the West End Theater, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. I can let you know when tickets go on sale. If you are interested, that night there will be a red carpet. There will be the movie, and then a short Q&A afterwards with the director, producer, and myself for about a half an hour. I would love for you to come out. So all of my darklings around the world and around the United States, if you would like to make your way to Minnesota this October and come on out and see The Outer Edge, a new exploration into the paranormal, I think you're going to like this because it's different than a lot of the different programs out there and different than things that I've done in the past. And I'm really humbled and pleased to be a part of this project. So again, if you're interested, then email me, Dave@paranormal60. That's Dave@paranormal, and then the number 6 and the number 0.com. Dave@paranormal60.com. And in the subject line, say documentary film. And as soon as tickets go on sale, I will email you the link. Now, be aware, there's only 138 tickets that will be available for this screening. Hopefully, we blow it up and sell it out, and they're forced to put on another screening. So let me know if you're interested. I will send you the link when it becomes available so that you can join and be a part of that screening with me. It would really be exciting to have all of you, my darklings, in attendance. And as our conversation with Marilynn Hughes has come to a close, we're reminded that the boundaries that we cling to, body, time, space, may be nothing more than just illusions. Through thousands of out-of-body journeys, she has charted landscapes most of us only brush against in dreams, leaving behind a record of what lies beyond the veil. Her story is not just about escaping the body, but about expanding the soul. Each experience she shares pulls back the curtain a little further, suggesting that the mysteries of existence are far greater, yet far closer than we dared to believe. Perhaps the real journey isn't about leaving ourselves behind, but about discovering the vast eternal self that has been there all along. So until next time, my darklings, may the darkness of this world be just a little brighter with the light of knowledge that we share here each week on your home for everything strange and supernatural. This is the Paranormal 60.